Hello, folks. Today's lesson is going to be taken from the IP mistakes creators make that cost them money mini course from the classroom. And this is something I just wanted to point out to people is that there's a really big misconception that you automatically own everything you create. And although in most first world countries, that is considered your right to own the copyright of anything you create as soon as you create it. Um, there's a big difference between knowing that and actually being able to legally prove it and protect it. And that's something that a lot of people overlook. So, what I'm going to suggest is it's going to be different for every country, but what you need to do is, in this case, I'm going to go to Ecosia um, because I like them as a search engine in general. And I'm going to put in what are the copyright for intellectual property in Canada because I live in Canada. And so this is going to give you a lot of government documentation about exactly how copyright works. We've got even Wikipedia has copyright law of Canada. We've got intellectual property law in Canada, and these are government websites, the top three matches. Um, and what you're going to want to do is take the time to do this search and read some of these pages. I've done this many times over. I've taught some of this stuff in the classroom, but something like this can be very handy. It's a guide to copyright. This is something the government has produced and put in a digital format. You've got your table of contents, and you can read up on the basics of copyright. These are all things that are provided by most governments that are very useful and helpful. And I'm going to tell you why you want to do this. Right, like it says here on the screen, you can protect what legally qualifies as intellectual property. Most creators wildly misjudge what's protected and what isn't. Here's a simple breakdown. You can protect original content such as videos, writing, illustrations, images, and designs. Brand elements, name, logo, slogan. Educational material, frameworks, methods, templates. Software you wrote. Music, recordings, and creative works. So what's really important here is you put it down, you have to record it. It can't just be an idea. You need to not only create, even if it's a digital file, if it's an idea, if it's an image, if it's a picture or an illustration, you don't have to post it all over the internet, but you do need to make sure that you note it and you make sure that your file metadata is right and working. And that means that you need to use actually registered software because it's going to use the details that you entered when you first installed that software. So don't use fake names and phone numbers. You cannot protect raw ideas with no expression. So right now I could sit here and come up with an idea. How about aliens that come to Earth and they look like giant florets of broccoli? Like their body looks like broccoli with arms. Okay? I can say that. Anyone who watches this video can now take that idea because I didn't draw it, I didn't write it, I didn't make a note of it. And it's good to have a backup, either digital or physical journal, and make note of the ideas you create when you create them because as much as copyright is supposed to protect all of your ideas once you produce them, once you create them, the thing is that if you can't prove it, someone else could steal that idea and claim they came up with it first. So for example, let's say I take that broccoli idea and I draw it up today and write a short story to go with it for a children's book. And let's say someone else hears about that or saw this video and decided to do the same thing. Well, if they get it out first, if they publish it first, if they post it online somewhere, if they do it right now today, then they have the grounds to say, no, I came up with that first. you need to make sure that you have proof that you can show that you created that physical trace. And in this case, physical does encompass digital files as well, but that you had that existing in the world before someone else did. So raw ideas with no expression, generic concepts like motivation, fitness, or spirituality, anything you copied from someone else, that one should be obvious, and work created for you by contractors unless the contract says you own it. So that one is also a really big deal. You can hire someone else to draw a comic or do your book cover illustration. If you don't make sure that the contract states that it's a work for hire agreement and that you own the output when the contract is completed, then the artist could still claim copyright for that work. They could say they own it and that you only have first time publishing rights. So again, that's a benefit to the artist. It's not necessarily a benefit to the publisher or the writer, depending on what side of the equation you're on and how you see it. But you need to make sure that these specifics are outlined in your work agreements. And as it says here, that last one is a killer. Creators hire designers, editors, and contractors assuming they own the output. Without the right agreement, they don't. So that's something to keep in mind, that you want to protect your intellectual property, make sure you own it, make sure someone else isn't using it, exploiting it, or claiming it as their own. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that all of your contracts are detailed, that they're produced legally, and that all of your files, your proof of creation, can be verified, can be dated, has a backup. You don't have to post everything as soon as you think of it or create it or draw it online as proof. But you do need to make sure that things like the metadata in your files is up to date. And that's a whole other subject that we can talk about another time. But just be aware that when you install software and it asks you to fill in your information like your name and phone number and location and whatnot, that is stored in the metadata for all of the files you create in that software. So if you're using pirated stuff that you've downloaded from somewhere, or if you are feeling clever and decide to throw in funny names when you register your software so that it'll give a funny name when the software opens, because some say hello whoever when the software opens, that's going to affect the data that's recorded in your files. So make sure that you are doing your best to keep your bases covered, because you don't want someone to take your ideas. You don't want someone else to come up with something similar and you try and challenge it, and they say, well, I had this first, or I did this first, I produced this first. It will come down to that if there's a dispute between two copyrighted intellectual properties, is who can demonstrate that their version was in existence first. Now, there are also copyright registrations where you can legally file to have a certificate from the government that you have registered your copyright. That again is another subject to cover in another day, but this is just to get you thinking about how you protect your intellectual property, how you protect your ideas, your characters, the stories and the books that you write, your children's books. These are all things that could be compromised if you don't make sure your bases are covered. So that is why we have the IP mistakes creators make that costs them money mini course. It's free, it's in the classroom, so you should check it out. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you inside the Creative Illuminati.